Okay, this is lesson 12. The title is Decimal Numbers, and objective 1 is to convert between decimals and fractions. Well, the first thing that we have to know is place value of decimals and how to read them. Okay, so we have to remember, I got a place value chart, we have to remember how to read decimals. So there's the decimal place. If I look one space to the left of the decimal, okay, I've got the units, also called the ones place. Then after that is the tens place, okay, and then the hundreds. And if we keep going here, I'll fill in some zeros here. Tens, here's the hundreds, 4 places to the left is the thousands, then the 10,000s, and the 100,000s, and the millions, and the 10 millions, and then the 100 millions. Okay? Well, so right now, this number that I have written, if I filled in commas, I could look at how to read this. I've got a 1 in the 100 million spot and no other numbers. So it's just 100 million. Okay? Now, when we read the decimal point, okay, we need to remember to read the decimal point. Instead of saying the word point, we say and. Okay? So instead of saying decimal or dot or point, we say and to read the decimal point. Then to the right, okay, notice all the THs I have over here. Tenths is the first place. Okay? And then hundredths. And then thousandths. And then 10,000ths. Okay? And the THs are to differentiate between the other ones, because over here I've got tens, so I can't say this one tens because it's not the same place. So I've got tens and tenths. The decimal side is the ths, okay, with the THs. Then the hundredths, and the thousandths, and then the 10,000ths. And then if we kept going, we would go 100,000ths, and millionths, and so on. Okay? So right now, this whole big number I wrote says 100 million and 1/10,000th, because it's in the 10,000ths place. Okay? Let's go on and talk about a couple other examples here. Alright, so here we go. So we're going to convert between decimals and fractions. So up over here in the top right hand corner is our steps. Okay, here I put our place value chart again to help us out with reading things. Here we got our steps. Okay, so our first step is to write the number in words. Okay, then the digits after the decimal are the numerator. Okay, remember numerator is top number. And the place value of the last digit when you read it is the denominator. And then you need to reduce if possible. Okay, so let's put this together and talk about what it means. First thing on my place value chart here, I want to remember that my units is the ones place, and I read the decimal point as and. Okay, because we need to remember those things. So let's slide this up a little bit and see what we're going to do. Example 1 says name each decimal number. So that's why the first step over here says write the number in words, because we have to name each decimal number. That means write it in words. Then write the decimal number as a reduced fraction. So then we use steps 2, 3, and 4. Alright, so part A. I want you to get away from reading this as 2.8. Okay, let's plug this number into our decimal chart up here. 2, and decimal point, and then 8. Okay? Now to read this number, we read it just like it sounds. So this ones place right here, that's just 2. Then we say and for the decimal, so it's 2 and. Then you read the number. It's 8, and then say the decimal place, tenths. Okay? So if I'm going to write part A here, it is 2 and then I say again my place value, I've got an 8 and it's in the tenths place, so it's 2 and 8 tenths. Okay, that's step 1 for these, is to write the number in words. 2 and 8 tenths. Now I'm going to give you a place value chart. I'm going to give everybody one that looks kind of like the one I have up in the picture here, and if you want to use that to write your numbers down to help you read them, you sure may. Okay, you won't be able to use that on your test, but it can help you to be a good studying tool. So you could fill in the numbers like I did to help you say it. 2 and 8 tenths. Okay? Then it says to write the decimal number as a reduced fraction. Okay? Well, our next step says the digits after the decimal are the numerator. So first thing is we have to write this as a fraction. 2 and 8/10. Okay, so I've got 2 and then 8/10. So the digit after the decimal is the numerator. So this number 8 is my top number of my fraction. Step 3 says the place value of the last digit is the denominator. So that word I say, tenths. Okay, tenths, that's the denominator. So 10 is the denominator. So this says 2 and 8/10 as a fraction. Again, the big number stays. The number I had, okay, is the numerator. And the place value, the tenths, 10, is the denominator. Now I need to reduce, if possible. Well, 2 and 8/10 breaks down. Okay, we could divide the top and the bottom both by 2. And then we get, so 2 and 8/10, that equals 2. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. 2 and 4/5 as a reduced mixed number. Okay, let's try B. Okay, so part B. 0.75. Again, we need to write it as we're supposed to read it. Okay, so if I fill this in here, 0.75. Whenever there's a 0, you can kind of just ignore that. You don't need to say it. Okay, I don't need to say 0 and. But then I look at my last two digits here. That says 75. So I've got 75. And then look at what place value I end up in. I end up over here. My last digit is in the hundredths. So this says 75, and then it's in the hundredths place. Okay? My digit farthest to the right is in the hundredths place, so that's the one I say, 75 hundredths. Okay? Now write the decimal as a reduced fraction. Step 2 says the digits after the decimal are the numerator. Okay, so these two digits are going to be my top number. My bottom number is the place value I read. I wrote down hundredths right here, so my bottom number is 100. Okay? Now I got to reduce this. 75 hundredths. Well, 25 goes into both of these. And 75 divided by 25 is 3. And 100 divided by 25 is 4. 25 hundredths is the same as 3/4. Okay? Let's go on to some more examples. Okay, so example 2 says order these numbers from least to greatest. Okay? So we're going to put these decimals in order from least to greatest, from smallest to largest. Our steps for that are first to line up the decimal points of all the numbers. Okay? Then we're going to fill in zeros so that every number has the same amount of digits in it. And then we're going to compare them one at a time from left to right. Then we're going to write the numbers in order from least to greatest. Okay, so step 1 says line up the decimal points of all the numbers. So the first thing I need to do is just rewrite these. So 0.5, 5/10, remember is what that says. Then 0.41, I line up the decimal points. Remember that's 41 hundredths because we ended in the hundred spot. Then 0.05 is 0 and 5 hundredths, or just 5 hundredths. And the last one is 405 thousandths. Okay, notice I got my decimal points all lined up. Now we want each of these numbers to have the same number of digits. Okay, so this one has the most digits. So every other number we need to fill in with zeros so they have the same, they all have 4 digits like this one does. Okay, so I'm going to fill in a 0 for this one to match up, a 0 for this one to match up, and this one needs to get 2 zeros to match up. Okay? So we've got all the numbers with the same amount of digits. Now I need to compare the digits one at a time from left to right. Okay? So I'm going to look at this first column, my leftmost column. They're all 0, so that doesn't tell me much. Now I look at this column. Okay, well what's the smallest number I see here? The smallest number in this column is 0. that means that this number is the smallest one. So if I'm putting them in order from least to greatest, I start with the smallest one, and that's 0. And I'm going to write it as it looked originally. It was 0.05, 5 hundredths. Okay? I'm done with that number. Now, I look for the next smallest. Well, I've got two numbers that have 4 in this column, so I have to keep going to the next one. This one's got a 1, this one's got a 0. So this right here is my next smallest number because 0 is smaller than 1. So 405 thousandths is the next smallest. Then I'm down to comparing these two numbers. Well, if I look again, zeros match up. Then I got a 5 and a 4. The 4 is smaller, so that means that that number is the next smallest, and that started as 41 hundredths. And then 5 tenths is my biggest number. Okay, so there's my answer with my numbers in order from least to greatest. Okay, let's do some more examples. Okay, in example 3, we are asked to express each fraction as a mixed, or sorry, let me try that again. We're asked to express each fraction or mixed number as a decimals. So we want to change from these fractions to decimals. Okay, step 1, or the only step you have, is to use the fraction to set up a division problem. Okay, so we're going to set up a division problem with these. Now, when you divide these, okay, the top number, the numerator, always goes on the inside of the division sign, and the denominator always goes on the outside. Okay, so we got to keep that in mind. Numerator on the inside, the top number, the denominator goes on the outside. So, express 3/8 as a decimal number. So my numerator, my 3, goes on the inside, my 8 goes on the outside. Okay? Well, 8 doesn't go into 3, so we put a 0, and then we got to put our decimal point and add a 0. Okay? 8 does go into 30, and it goes in 3 times. 8 times 3 is 24. And I subtract these numbers. 30 minus 24 is 6. Okay? And I got to keep going until I can't, or I have to keep going until I have no remainder. So now 8 goes into 60. That is 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. When I subtract 60 and 56, I get 4. I still got a remainder, so I have to bring down another 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. And if I multiply 8 times 5, I get 40. Now I have no remainder, so now I'm done, and my answer is right here. 375 thousandths. Okay? Well, part B, we're going to take this and write it as a fraction again. We're going to think of this again, remember, this is 2 plus 1/2. Okay? So I'm only going to work, when I do the dividing, I'm going to work with the 1/2 right there. My numerator, my top number, goes inside. My denominator goes outside. And again, I know a lot of you could tell me what 1/2 is as a decimal right away, but I want you to show me the division. Okay? 2 doesn't go into 1. We add a decimal point. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10, and I subtract. I've got no remainder. Okay, so I'm good. So this now changed to 2 plus 5 tenths. Okay? Well, I rewrite that. 2 is my big number, and then 5 tenths. It's 2 and 5 tenths. Okay? Okay. So that's converting fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. Now we need to talk about percentages. So we'll go on to our next objective.